It was just past midnight when a single leak sent the world's military and diplomatic networks racing. Before analysts could finish their coffee, Reuters and AP began flashing red banners across screens. Credible sources claimed that a top-secret Iranian strategy, previously unseen outside cloistered briefing rooms, had suddenly become public knowledge. Within half an hour, BBC news anchors cut into scheduled programming, pushing the breaking story to every corner of the globe. Overnight, the internet became a hive of speculation and frantic analysis on Twitter and Telegram. OSINT trackers and think tanks scrambled to verify the emerging documents, satellite pings, and intercepted communications. The sheer scope of the leak was unlike anything seen in years. Not just a hint or rumor, but a detailed blueprint exposing hidden objectives, logistics, and the interplay of shadowy players behind the plan. In defense ministries from Berlin to Tel Aviv, alarms sounded in war rooms as the implications began to sink in. Markets lurched, oil futures swung wildly, and allies messaged Washington demanding clarity. Within hours, the consensus was clear. This wasn't just intelligence slipping through the cracks, it was a breach powerful enough to rewrite diplomatic talking points by dawn. No expert saw it coming, now no one could ignore it. For viewers, the message was electric. Whatever you thought you knew about the standoff with Iran, the rules have changed overnight. What began as an ordinary trickle of rumors on niche defense forums quickly ballooned into a global puzzle that only open-source analysts could hope to solve. Live UAMAP followers first noticed subtle anomalies, what looked like unseasonal fuel convoys zigzagging along rarely used Iranian highways, then a string of unexplained night flights into airfields catalogued by Janes as reserved for emergency military use. Defense news watchers added another piece to the mystery, patterns of encrypted communications surging between well-known Revolutionary Guard bases and smaller stations buried deep in the desert. Digital sleuths, many publishing in real time on Twitter and OSINT Telegram channels, layered commercial satellite imagery atop Tehran's traffic data. They cross-referenced visible construction on isolated hilltops, blips of machinery movement or fresh earthworks showing on consecutive days, with social media videos from truckers and locals capturing glimpses of unusual military columns at dusk. When intercepted memos started circulating on military chat rooms, a dozen independent translators worked overnight to verify phrases that matched code words used in previous covert IRGC operations. As evidence mounted, the emerging picture became startling. This wasn't routine redeployment, but a complex, multi-theater plan involving cyber, missile, and proxy operations woven together with timing and secrecy. On Reddit and specialized YouTube channels, real-time breakdowns charted movement maps, tested fake news claims, and sourced images down to time-stamped vehicle shadows. For many, the story's shock wasn't only in what the plan said, but how a decentralized digital army pieced it together, beating even the world's most powerful intelligence services to the punch. What the world saw in leaked summaries was only the surface. Buried within the decrypted files and analyst briefings lay the bones of a plan unlike any previously attributed to Iran's leadership. Drawing from CSIS and RAND reports, it became clear this was not a defensive doctrine, but an ambitious playbook for regional disruption, far beyond the tit-for-tat missile duels or headline-grabbing naval skirmishes. At its heart, a synchronized offensive using all the tools of modern hybrid warfare. Technical annexes describe swarms of loitering drones pre-positioned along the Persian Gulf littoral, ready for coordinated strikes against both military and commercial shipping at a moment's notice. Unmonitor's Middle East sources confirm that several IRGC airfields, now flagged on OSINT maps, had quietly expanded their drone parks and installed upgraded command antennas. Missile batteries were not arrayed for maximal defense, but staged for rapid, multi-vector launches able to overwhelm radars and draw Allied forces into a dilemma, protect bases or oil convoys, but not both. Even more unsettling for many Western experts was the depth of Iran's cyber and electronic warfare plans. Detailed lists showed mapped vulnerabilities in regional port authority systems, major telecom backbones, and banking access points from Bahrain to Istanbul. The plan sketched out sabotage and digital manipulation to spread confusion and slow any coordinated Western response, potentially masking the movement of proxy militias in Iraq, Syria, and Yemen, while regional governments scrambled to address false alarms and paralyzed infrastructure. Perhaps most shocking, echoed in RAND analysis, was the clear intention to create escalation traps. By spreading operations across land, sea, information, and cyber domains, Iran's leadership hoped to force adversaries into overreaction, or to miss the real thrust entirely, keeping decision-makers off balance, while Tehran's true objective, recalibrating deterrence and claiming leverage for future negotiations, unfolded beneath the noise. Even seasoned analysts admitted this level of integration and ambition outstripped anything Iran's playbook had shown before, and, if not for digital sleuthing, it might have remained invisible until it was far too late. Behind the newly uncovered plan lay an intricate web of actors, each contributing to the strategy with their own agendas and spheres of influence. At the center stood the IRGC's Quds Force, long profiled by BBC and Middle East Eye as the mastermind behind Iran's external military and intelligence operations. Satellite and field reporting cross-referenced these leaks, placing key IRGC leaders in high-level strategy huddles with Iran's regular military brass. Instead of acting alone, the plan showed how these military arms were now integrating more deeply with civilian ministries, leveraging ports, oil transport authorities, and state telecommunications to provide logistical cover and real-time information feeds. Regional proxy militias were essential to the plot. Iraqi Hashad al-Shaabi commanders were found exchanging encrypted messages with IRGC liaisons, while Lebanon's Hezbollah and Syria-based militias shifted resources in quiet parallel to changes seen inside Iran. The plan assigned these proxies both as forward sensors for Western military movements and as force multipliers for cyber and kinetic operations able to disrupt, distract, or escalate outside Iran's borders, while Tehran maintained official deniability. Foreign partners also loomed in the background. From technology transfers attributed to Russian military consultants to the hints of arms purchases routed via shadowy Chinese brokers, the chain of support extended well beyond Iran's formal alliance structure. Yet, the leaked files revealed internal debates in Tehran. Some government ministries expressed concern about economic blowback, while clerical establishment hardliners pressed for even greater speed and scale. The picture that emerges is not of a monolith, but a living network of actors, sometimes in synchrony, sometimes at odds. The ability of this web to hold under pressure, or fracture in the spotlight, could ultimately decide whether Iran's plan is remembered as a masterstroke or a fatal overreach. In hindsight, the puzzle pieces seem impossible to miss, yet each was discarded by Western intelligence as noise, or explained away as routine maneuvering. Defense news analysts have documented that even as marine traffic flagged unusual patterns of Iranian shipping ghosting in the Gulf, US and European agencies hesitated to treat the new traffic as anything more than clever sanctions evasion. Meanwhile, Israeli and NATO aerial surveillance noted the expansion of drone parks and changes at several Iranian air bases, but intelligence chiefs, echoing CSIS briefings, read these as one-off exercises or show-of-force posturing for internal audiences. Diplomatic channels painted an equally confusing picture. Mixed messaging out of Tehran alternated between belligerence and vague offers of indirect engagement, leaving foreign ministries in Europe and Tel Aviv divided over whether a real breakthrough or a breakdown was on the horizon. Saudi security alerts on proxy activity in Iraq and Yemen grew steadily more urgent, but were filed away by desk officers as regional background noise. The human factor proved decisive. So many warnings arrived that they blended into the daily churn of alerts. The leak revealed that, even as critical indicators spiked in multiple domains — energy, logistics, signals, social forums — they were still siloed by agency and country, never fully connected. By the time the plan was exposed, the myth of Western omniscience had been well and truly punctured. The world was left asking not just how Iran pulled it off, but why so many saw only what they expected until it was too late. The activation of Iran's secret plan wasn't marked by any grand announcement, but by a swift, synchronized series of moves that began at 2 a.m. local time. OSINT enthusiasts and foreign commercial satellites later confirmed a sudden blackout across military comms hubs in southern Iran, providing the first unmistakable clue. Hours earlier, a guarded convoy had rolled out of Esfahan Air Base, transporting what analysts now believe were command assets and launch crews to hard-to-track operational sites. According to credible leaks surfaced by Aden Monitor and cross-checked by BBC Persian, the pressure on Tehran's leadership reached a fever pitch following a string of regional proxy attacks and an intercepted message indicating adversary readiness to escalate. With senior IRGC commanders huddling in a fortified command center, the final go decision was relayed via encrypted bursts to dispersed drone, missile, and cyber teams. Within minutes, pre-positioned units across at least 3 provinces began executing coordinated test maneuvers. Drones lifted silently from desert runways, cell towers flickered with anomalous data, and cyber traffic spiked against selected infrastructure targets abroad. For Western analysts, who would only later see the full timeline stitched together, the clarity is now chilling. Once Tehran resolved to act, the plan shifted instantly from theoretical to operational, with barely a window for preemptive response. The moment details of Iran's secret plan hit the international press, shockwaves rippled through global markets and energy corridors. Reuters and AP reported that within hours, oil futures surged nearly 7%, erasing weeks of price stability and sending commodity traders into turmoil on both sides of the Atlantic. Al Jazeera's coverage quickly connected the dots. Major tanker operators rerouted or delayed planned transits through the Strait of Hormuz, triggering insurance premium spikes and port congestion from Fujairah to Rotterdam. Market analysts watched as marine traffic and energy intelligence feeds flickered with anomalies, a sudden uptick in dark ships cutting transponders, queues at export terminals, and security alerts from Gulf facilities. Meanwhile, equities from Tokyo to London wobbled as the flow-on impact hit global supply chains, raising new fears of inflation and near-term energy shortages. Shipping companies scrambled to renegotiate contracts while hedge funds executed split-second trades to ride or hedge against volatility. It wasn't just the energy sector on edge. Regional airlines rerouted flights, risking delays to sidestep new restricted airspace. Factories in Asia that rely on cheap Persian Gulf fuel braced for fresh cost shocks. By the close of trading, it was clear. Even the leak of a plan that didn't fire a single shot had rewired the world's sense of stability, confirming just how sensitive the global order is to threats no one saw coming, and just how tightly energy, trade, and security now intertwine. The first sign that Washington had grasped the urgency came before dawn, when the WUAMOP and defense updates reported a sudden uptick in U.S. reconnaissance flights over the Persian Gulf and critical overland corridors. E-3 AWACS and rivet joint platforms orbited near Iranian airspace, sucking up signals and electronic emissions, while satellites refocused on inland IRGC infrastructure. By midday, kings and generals documented live footage of carrier strike groups in the Arabian Sea at full alert, destroyer escort screens tightening as F-35s patrolled nearer to disputed waters. Inside the Pentagon, flash briefings ran back-to-back. Orders went out for rapid redeployment of forward-deployed UAVs and fast-response fighter squadrons from bases in Qatar and UAE. In tandem, Israel raised air defense levels to their highest since the last major Iran-Hamas flare-up. Iron Dome, David Sling, and Arrow batteries recalibrated to anticipate swarms and complex missile salvos. NATO's response force quietly activated readiness drills across bases in Turkey, Italy, and the Eastern Mediterranean, sending unmistakable signals about alliance solidarity. The cyber front was equally dynamic. As Defense News later pieced together, U.S. Cyber Command launched hunt-forward missions to detect and blunt potential Iranian incursions on Western energy grids and critical banking infrastructure. Gulf states, especially Saudi Arabia and the UAE, enacted new protocols at key refineries and pipelines, using both American and British contractors to bolster their digital firewalls and increase port surveillance. Behind the scenes, intelligence sharing expanded at breakneck speed. Secure links hummed between Langley, Tel Aviv, Riyadh, and European capitals, with analysts pooling OSINT findings and human intelligence intercepts to predict where, how, and when Iran's strategy might morph from shadow to shot. The message was clear. Every asset was now poised for prevention or preemption. In less than 12 hours, global forces pivoted to a heightened state, no longer wondering if a crisis would break, but bracing for whichever form it might take. As the secret plan's exposure ricocheted across the world, the mood inside Iran shifted from anxious uncertainty to outright panic and control. Tasnim News and Al Monitor reported that within hours, authorities froze or filtered WhatsApp and Twitter access in major cities. State TV anchors reasserted official denials with uncharacteristic urgency, framing the revelations as enemy propaganda, while quietly extending live footage of calm traffic and empty city squares. Behind closed doors, families huddled around television and radio, desperately seeking clarity as power flickered and mobile access blinked in and out. OSINT feeds tracked a surge in VPN downloads and encrypted messaging app installs, reflecting how everyday Iranians worked to outpace new layers of censorship. Blackouts hit Instagram and satellite TV channels, cutting off many from international updates and fueling a wildfire of homegrown rumor chains. "Did you hear it's just the beginning?" whispered neighbors in Tehran and Shiraz. Across rural regions, stories of mobilized convoys and mysterious sirens spread fear. Even as the regime tried stamping out panic, digital sleuths mapped trending Persian language hashtags, many quickly deleted but screenshotted, questioning why military vehicles were redeploying at odd hours or why so many streets were suddenly deserted. The gap between official calm and what people witnessed daily only heightened the tension, making clear that in this moment, both the battle for facts and the weight of public fear were being fought far from the front lines. As confirmation of Iran's secret plan swept global media, embassies, and parliaments, world leaders scrambled to issue statements, warnings, and measured overtures. CSIS briefings and Reuters dispatches described a frantic sequence. The UN Security Council called an emergency meeting, with Secretary General appeals for restraint as regional tensions soared. In European capitals, diplomats walked a delicate line. Paris, Berlin, and London jointly called for transparency and a return to meaningful dialogue, urging both Washington and Tehran to avoid a downward spiral. Meanwhile, Moscow's response, chronicled by BBC and Al Jazeera, was sharply critical of Western provocation, with the Kremlin hinting that further escalation could destabilize alliances and arms control regimes. Beijing's foreign ministry took a more reserved tone, publicly backing talks but quietly warning that disruption to Persian Gulf energy flows or shipping would bring global consequences, revealing not just a regional but a truly international standoff. In Ankara and Riyadh, nervous officials reviewed their own threat postures, raising defense alerts and moving to secure refineries, embassies, and waterways. The Gulf's smaller states, deeply reliant on safe trade and secure skies, quietly pressed for Western assurances and contingency planning. All the while, the diplomatic chess game picked up pace. Second-track negotiations, urgent phone calls, and back-channel offers revealed a world where, even as the rhetoric grew sharper, every player sought options to prevent the next move from becoming catastrophe. For military experts worldwide, the exposure of Iran's secret plan wasn't just alarming, it was humbling. In frank post-mortems aired by Janes, Rand, and task and purpose analysts, one theme dominated. The established rulebook failed. Trusted signals like force buildup, traditional mobilization, or noisy propaganda were swapped out for digital subtleties and operational misdirection. Veteran commentators stressed how Iran's heavy reliance on cyber, commercial logistics, and proxy forces made its moves harder to detect, while the blending of civilian assets and military infrastructure blurred every obvious sign of escalation. Rand's assessment acknowledged gaps in Western intelligence priorities, where siloed analysis meant that warning signs were visible but unconnected, a pattern that let this plan incubate beneath a veil of routine. Technical experts highlighted how Iran's use of off-the-shelf drones, encrypted messaging apps, and fake shipping manifests forced a new approach to threat detection. The old assumption that open conflict always leaves tracks was upended, OSINT sleuths spotted the breadcrumbs first, conventional agencies were left playing catch-up. Experts now call for renewed cooperation between public and classified sources, better data fusion, and analytical creativity that values pattern-breaking what-if scenarios over familiar checklists. As panelists concluded on task and purpose, the value of humility, accepting that surprise remains possible, may now be as critical to defense as any missile shield. The lesson is both a warning and a blueprint for what comes next. Across Tehran's busy markets, the normally predictable rhythm of trade flickered with new anxieties. Shopkeepers huddled together, debating whether to accept foreign currency or hoard inventory, while a jewelry merchant confessed to BBC reporters that a rumor of currency controls had sent customers home clutching their savings. In southern Iran, parents of young conscripts scoured news apps for safe, verified updates, too aware of misinformation to trust any one headline. Al Jazeera shared scenes from the Gulf's expat communities, shipping managers texting updates on rerouted cargo, students from Bahrain and Kuwait watching fuel prices and wondering if classes would be cancelled. In bustling ports, dock workers waited on overtime callouts, not knowing if the next shift would mean extra pay or sudden lockdown. In each story, whether tinged with FOMO, rumor, or weary pragmatism, one thread connected them. Uncertainty had arrived overnight, leaving no walk of life untouched. Yet, despite whispers of fear and the sharp edge of new restrictions, many still opened their shops, sent children to school, and checked in on neighbors, a reminder that even in crisis, daily life clings to ordinary acts of hope and endurance. With crisis comes a surge of viral misinformation, and in the hours after the leak, the digital battlefield was as crowded as the real one. BBC Reality Check and Al Jazeera Fact Check teams worked overtime to flag recycled videos, miscaptioned images, and breaking news audio clips that were years old or completely fabricated. OSINT communities on Twitter and Reddit quickly dismantled false claims using satellite verification, metadata sleuthing, and geolocation of incident photos. For viewers, the lesson was blunt. Don't trust a dramatic claim until it's backed by independent sources or cross-checked by analysts with a public track record. Look for timestamps, original context, and source credibility if you can't find a link to a reputable newsroom or clear geolocation. Hold back before sharing. In modern conflict, the flood of noise can outpace the facts, but anyone can learn basic verification skills. The real difference isn't who gets the news first, but who can sort what's real from what simply goes viral. In the autopsy of this crisis, RAND and CSIS commentators were unsparing. Most governments and experts left themselves vulnerable not through lack of resources, but through old habits and overconfidence. Hindsight has now exposed the risky reliance on familiar narratives, assuming deterrence would hold, or that routine signals meant routine results. The biggest miss wasn't a single hidden truck or encrypted message, but the collective failure to connect the dots across domains, from cyber to shipping, diplomacy to street-level rumor. For leaders, the warning is stark. Surprise remains possible, and adversaries count on your assumptions. For viewers and analysts, the lesson is to question comfortable certainty, seeking multiple perspectives and not just convenient headlines. As the next round of secrets, leaks, or moves in this global chess game unfolds, everyone, governments, journalists, ordinary citizens, will need to upgrade how they watch the world. Stay vigilant. The next surprise might be brewing already, and only those who scan the horizon with honest skepticism will catch it before it breaks. Now it's your turn. After seeing how close the world came to a major crisis, what do you believe should happen next? Should leaders double down on deterrence, open direct talks, or focus on tightening intelligence to prevent future surprises? Share your thoughts, worries, or predictions below. The best conversations happen when this community brings its own insight and questions. Your ideas might shape the next episode, or even help others make sense of today's breaking news. Don't just watch history happen, join the debate and let us know what you'd do if you were calling the shots. Stay tuned, this story is still unfolding, and what happens in the next days could redraw the global map once again. Our team will be monitoring every new leak, official statement, and market tremor to keep you ahead of the rumors and spin. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a crucial update or analysis. As the world stands on edge, ask yourself, what will tomorrow's headlines look like if another secret breaks overnight? You won't want to be the last to know. Stay sharp, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next episode.